Okay, so welcome, Holly. I'm so glad to have you here today. I love to chat with you anytime I can, but today we're going to specifically chat about the 200-hour yoga teacher training that you'll be offering from your business, Circle Yoga Shala, here at Eastern Liberty over the course of 2024. So I wanted to let our community get to know you just a little bit so you could talk about your kind of what brought you to this place in your life and your business and your experience with teaching. And then also we'll talk about the training itself.
Wonderful. So how do you want to start? Like how I started? I'm thinking,
Yeah, tell
do we
us
want
a
to go
little bit
back
about
30
yourself.
years?
Yeah, right. Okay, a brief way that brought you to where you are in teaching.
Okay, well, let's just see what spontaneously happens here. So yes, I first came across the yoga tradition. It was roughly 32 years ago. And and I say ironically because maybe it's not typical. My Catholic priest is the one that introduced me to yoga, and not just yoga, but the Eastern philosophies. And I had a really fabulous time with him during that time of, he gave me permission to parallel, to look to these perennial teachings and not get caught in the trappings and the dogma that has to do with a lot of cultural, mappings and trappings and all of that, but like what's underneath the essence. And then we would map that to the Gospels. And so it was this really beautiful time that just like gave me permission, right? to grow in a certain way and not to be afraid, but also have the wisdom of discernment. And so that really began for me. And so it really began with the philosophical understandings. And of course, I haven't become a Hindu, that hasn't changed, but the philosophical underpinnings of yoga have absolutely influenced my life completely. And you know that about us. And of course, when I met my husband, Matthew, we've been married over 25 years. And he was also, well, he was a philosophy major and a religious scholar, but he had more of the physical practice of yoga happening for his life because he was a drummer and a chef and got carpal tunnel syndrome. And through that, of course, they wanted to operate. And he's thinking, my passion and also my job, what's going to happen to those? And so he turned to yoga from the physical aspect of being able to address structural issues. And he healed his carpal tunnel. And I'm not going to say we can heal people or that yoga is always going to be the answer for any dysfunction of the system, but it certainly is an intelligent lens in which to be able to search through and apply in appropriate ways. So he did heal his carpal tunnel syndrome. And when we met, we really kind of merged how yoga was affecting us, the physical practice, but also the philosophy of really enriching our lives. And I think, just bringing about a really, fruitful time, like a really connected time without us becoming something different or taking on a new belief or changing religions or anything like that, but really infusing and deepening what was already foundational for each of us. And so that's really kind of like in a nut quick thing how it started. And then he and I ended up having a studio, and this was back in we took over Barefoot Studio, which was the main studio in Little Rock, which was a novelty even then. It was like December of '99. And we had that until 2009. And so we were studio owners and we were interfacing with the public. We grew it to 2 studios in one big building. We regularly had 75 people in our classes. And this was a time before yoga was mainstream. We had 10 teachers. We were able to support our family and, 2 kids in private school. Sharing the wisdom of yoga as a whole, because there's a sister science of Ayurveda, which is another kind of medical nutritional component, and really meeting our client base where they were with this system. And it worked, and we built a fabulous community. And from there, we really were feeling called to continue to grow ourselves. And that's when we came here in, I think it was June of 2009, and bought this. You were here in the very beginning, and it's still a rough, rustic place, beautiful, but it's not a 5-star resort. We didn't come to do that. We came here to live a creative and sustainable life, and to challenge ourselves in applying the wisdom on an even broader scope. And so we started, from scratch, a humble abode, mostly chicken coops, and dug in. And we've been so blessed by our history and our deep investigation, not just taking on as beliefs of something, but really, we use ourselves as our own lab rats. We're not going to believe anything because somebody says it or wrote it. We're going to apply it, and then, grapple with it and see, does it stand up? Does it hold up? And from that, we're fortunate enough that we are now an internationally accredited yoga therapy center. We're one of, maybe only 60 worldwide, which sounds like a lot, but when you consider how many yoga schools there are in the United States, there's tens of thousands. So not very many. We just completed a whole new reaccreditation process, which was a year process. The original one was a 3-year process. And that's quite different from schools becoming a registered, recognized school with the Yoga Alliance, where it just doesn't take anything to accomplish that. But we went through a very stringent, actually regulatory board of Eastern and Western doctors, massage therapists, occupational therapists, Ayurvedic physicians, the whole thing, looking at our program, and through the lens of every 15 minutes of our training. And so that's where we are. We've been here on about 14 and a half years. What I've been really focusing on the last number of years, as you know, I've been slowly retiring myself out of the training programs. And I say slowly because maintaining the quality, not just of content, but how to be able to train people, how to be able to identify their learning style, and how to be able to help get them through moments of, real crisis, of stumbling blocks, integration. It's one thing to disseminate a lot of information and wow people, and also give great content, but that's different than them being able to know how to use it. And that's one of the things that I'll just be really honest. I'm not trying to sound arrogant, and if it does, my apologies. Just give me some grace, please. We're masters at that. We are really adept at developing teachers, and that's one of the things that has been my passion, and really a sticking point for me as yoga schools started becoming, not just yoga studios started becoming a mainstream thing, which is beautiful, but then the accessibility, the ease of being able to become a school, which I think carries a lot more weight and responsibility, and people spending money on that and going through these trainings and getting great content. I'm not going to say that, not all the time, but it's not, but still sometimes, yes, but then they don't know what to do with it. And then they got to go figure it out in the marketplace. Well, if it says teacher training, to me, you need to be a teacher by the time you complete the training. So it's one thing to deliver content. It's another thing to be able to actually train somebody to be able to have it now be a part of their skin, something that they can access. You don't really understand something until you can use it. Now, I can know a lot of things, but that's different than being able to now apply it and fix something. And that's really been my passion. And I've been working on the 200 hour for, roughly 24 years. And it's a constant thing of just getting more and more adept and better at that. And then training other teachers that have been with us for a decade and plus of how to be able to do that, because that's just not a cookie cutter thing. And so then the last few years, as I've been finding space of finding, being able to turn pieces of the trainings over to other teachers, now my goal has been getting the training outside of the Shala itself, and making it more accessible. And the biggest thing that I've always done is support teachers of ours that are trying to support and serve their communities. And I know how hard that is. And so if I can bring a training to you, one, I don't think it's as inappropriate to say to anybody that's going to see this. This infuses revenue into your service work. And so it helps to make sure that, there's some support to continue what you're doing. And I love collaborating and I love sharing. I don't believe in competition in that way. Whoever's supposed to be coming there can't get here, or, I mean, none of us are all things to all people. And so finding ways, it's passionate for me to develop teachers, but also figure out a way to share this with people who are trying to be of service in their communities. And so I've been doing a lot of traveling, a lot more than I've been wanting to, and starting affiliate schools. I'm kind of using that as maybe like a thing, maybe, that's a goal for you long term is have your own school. I actually have other schools that are our curriculum and our program, but, our teachers are often running with them. So that's probably a lot more than what you asked for, but that's what actually just all came out.
I
So I
love
hope
it.
it's useful.
No, I
Yeah.
love to hear all of that. And I appreciate, and I see so many mirrors through my own experience and being drawn to yoga, and then even to being drawn to create the space that we've created here in Jonesboro. And that's still in its early phases. That still
Yeah.
has plans of being a retreat center and having, like you said, kind of some humble accommodations for people to come out and stay with us in various capacities. And this past year, we've really began the first time to be more of an education center in the sense of offering types of trainings like this, with Jonathan
Yeah.
doing Thai massage training, and we have
Yeah.
Dixie doing the Vishoka meditation.
Excuse me.
And I'm so thankful to have you come, because I know, as you just said, you're starting to kind of pare this piece down and focus in on some other mentoring work. And again, too, that, I know a lot, but I am not ready to develop a program of 200 hours and then start this whole thing myself. So I do rely on the teachings that you all have been working on, like you said, for almost 25 years, putting this program together. And then
Yeah.
as we talk just a little bit more specifically about what people can expect for this particular training, I want to point out just a few what I think are unique things about it, which, for one thing, it spans almost the course of a year, about 9 months or so. And it depends, people are looking at it from different views. Sometimes maybe you want to say, I want to hurry up and get this certificate. But again, like you mentioned, there's something to integration of the
Yeah.
material, right? You
Yes.
just can't get it all served up to you and then somehow have it within you, and then have it ready to apply, and then have the discernment of watching the students and applying
Yeah.
and creating. So I think it's very valuable to spread out this time, to let it really sink in, and to feel kind of less like it's a like tests from the classroom, that you've got
Yeah.
to, speaking from someone who's very good at memorizing things all through school, and getting good grades.
Yeah.
That's different. Memorizing sequences, or even specific, Sanskrit names of all these poses. So it does span, it starts in January 25th in 2024 and wraps up in September. So you have months in between each session, and each session is 4 days. So it's a 4-day,
Yeah.
4 intensive weekends. So you have time for that integration. I know there's a lot of complementing online support and things that they'll be working with online as well. So it's also not like they don't
Nothing
see us or
happens.
know anything about it, in that time between the intensives, right? So there's support with that as well. So I think that's pretty unique. And also it can help financially if you don't have
Yeah,
that savings right away to pay for the entire training. You can break that up into those 4
right.
intensives. So that's helpful. And then by the end, like you said, there's a difference truly between instructors and teachers. And those words are often used, interchangeably, and that's all right.
Sure,
But the
sure.
root of it, like you said, and even my 200, which I did in New York City at a very big yoga center, which is now defunct, by the way, uh, with a long story behind that. But when I got in there, I did not know this was really how it was going to be. And they were teaching me this long sequence and
Yeah.
telling me, if you want to teach hereafter, you're going to teach this sequence 100 times before you're allowed to vary it,
Wow.
all of these things, right?
Yeah.
So that's different. And like I said, I'm good at that. I can memorize a sequence. I can say it,
Sure.
I can regurgitate it, really well
Sure.
for you. But that's very different than having the knowledge and actually learning how and why you'd want to develop a class in a certain way, and then to be able to see the students that are attending and even to make split-second changes in the moment, right? Let their practice
Yes.
inform your teaching. So these are
Yes.
all the big things that I think stand out about this training than some of the average trainings that are offered.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And if we have a moment, I'd like to kind of elaborate a little bit on each point. Um, I know a lot of times people are looking for the weekend experience. We feel like from our experience is um, immersion, to be able to really integrate, like you're talking about, there needs to be some type of an immersion experience. And and so that can't happen really in 2 days. And so, 4 is a reasonable amount of time to be able to stay with something. And then of course, the way our program is put together, it's a principle-based program. And so, in between those intensives, like you said, there's time for integration. And he's like, but it's not like there's nothing happening. We have a private training site, and it's an encyclopedia of information, not things that we've copied and pasted. It's our own work. It's our own proprietary information. And so there's videos, there's lectures, there's practices, there's the manual. You can go in there and just put in any word, and it's going to pull up everything that has to do with that word, from being able to do a practice or seeing somebody else's sequence or questions about that. And then all the different places that you can reference that in our main workbook and our original manual that we started with. And so that's a really wonderful tool there to be able to stay to support the training itself. Most of our teachers find that even after intensive 1, they have a foundation to begin with. Mm. Most of our teachers, often by this time they're done with the second training, are already actively teaching somewhere. And those are really big statements. By the 4th training, what our teachers can do is what you're talking about. It's one thing to go into a studio or any setting, your church group, your teachers, your school teachers, whatever it is, your your women's groups, and say, we're going to do yoga. And you have an idea. You have a sequence. And it's one thing you're talking about, you are given a sequence to memorize. And then you see these people come in, and you're not taking into account the time of day, the season. Mm-hmm. You're not even paying attention to their posture. You don't even see what state are they in? um, and then you're not taking consideration, have they ever been to a yoga practice in a class before? 1, 2, 3 times, still not enough. Like, do they know how to adapt and modify? Is anybody pregnant? Are there any injuries? And a lot of times instructors will sit at the front of the class because they've been told to do this protocol, will ask all of that, and then take that information and then do nothing with it. It's the appearance of knowing what to do. And then they deliver the sequence that they had planned, which is a hit and miss and is not addressing the very feedback that you asked for. And you're just hoping
Honestly, then the clients or the students, they think, well, I can't do yoga
I
or
can't
hurt
do this.
myself, and I'm
Yes,
not gonna come back because
yes,
you really didn't meet them where they were.
no. And then you have the instructors who are taught to practice, which is the way to go. And I get that. But, to practice with the students. So the students are trying to keep up with the instructor and they're trying to make their body look like the instructors in front of them. And it's just not appropriate. My body's not going to look like your body. You're going to you're going to have strength where I don't. You're going to have mobility where I don't. You're also going to have asymmetries and compensations where I don't, and vice versa. So it's not appropriate. And that's, to me, that's the first big, you know, egregious thing against yoga. Yoga is a system that adapts to you. This is why I didn't have to take on a new belief or change my religion or anything else, even when I was studying the philosophy. It adapts to me. I don't adapt to it. It meets me where I am. So it's a system, but you got to understand that. And so we have split the atom, so to speak, and delivered this in really simple principles that then get challenged and grown gradually throughout the program so that you understand it and you're using it throughout the whole program, and growing it from simple to complex, so that by the fourth training, you can actually sit down and ask those questions and then realize you had an idea and you've got to start in 1 minute and you got to throw it out the window. And be calm and begin and have the ability to intuit then how to piece this together to meet all of those needs and give the language that turns people back to themselves to sense and feel deeply and see themselves in a way that tells them how to make that shape, not the shape that they want to make or they've seen, but the shape that is this is the goal. But now how do I shape that? Right? How does it shape in me? And so it's an empowering thing. Our teachers are able to really support and keep people really safe, turn them back to themselves, teach the person in this flow and fluid, not stuttering, start and stopping, but this flowing class, how to keep turning back and be able to make decisions that are intelligent and respectful of this system that is an immediate feedback loop for, is this okay? Is this okay? And now how should I go? I find that, in our training also, a lot of times people say, well, I really don't want to be a teacher. I just want to know how to take care of myself. Well, this is a training that you need to do then, because if you can't deliver it to others, you're not going to know how to deliver it to yourself. And, a cookie cutter sequence, like you're talking about this now defunct center where you've got to memorize this. Well, I don't wear the same clothes every day. I don't eat the same food every day. Why in the world would I do the same movement practice every day? And so it doesn't take into account illnesses, injuries, just the natural rhythm, the ebb and flows of life. It doesn't take into account that. But our system, the way we've unpacked this and we deliver it, absolutely interfaces with whatever is happening, I know what to do.
And
And
even in
that's a
the
tall order, but those are the expectations I place on myself. This is not the expectation to have the student to immediately be able to go, oh my God, that sounds so big. I can't do that. No, see, this is my job. This is my job and it's my aim. It's also my promise. And I don't not deliver because of the time that we have of being able to understand all the different wonderful, unique systems out there, all the different headsets, all the different biomechanical systems, and be able to understand what's getting in the way, and then be able to help that person access it so that then they can integrate it.
See, and I love this because even that description, which we've just now described, a yoga asana class, right? Which a lot of times what the West has really clung to here is the exercise part of
It's
yoga.
not wrong. It's just not whole.
Just a part. Yeah, it's just a part of it.
Yeah.
But what you're describing has already made so many other layers than just that simple physical piece.
Yeah.
And I think that that's certainly a goal of what we're teaching here. And I think that your training offers as well, that we want to really unwrap this layer that's more than just the physical. You're
Yeah.
speaking about sometimes it is our job to even help people who are all of us living in this society that is constant stimulation, to remember how to come back to ourselves, to
Yeah.
be okay in the silence and turn on our hearing and to listen and to apply and keep going inward, which is exactly opposite of how most of our modern
Yeah.
world is set up. So
Yeah.
these are really intelligent, really
Yeah.
nuanced, these pieces. And
Yes.
yeah.
Because when we turn back to ourselves, if I'm not feeling so good, and um, and then of course that ends up turning into a mood. My mind then gets on, and then negative talk. Well, you haven't done this, or you need to do that, or all of the self-help and development stuff. So you need to just get busy, right? You need to get active. You need to whirl your body through space
Right.
and get all of this, because then you'll look better. So then you'll feel better. Well, maybe that's true at times, right? But when I turn back to myself and first sense what's actually happening, then sometimes I touch, exhaustion. Well, whirling my body through space and doing a really rigorous movement practice for a moment may feel good, but then I'm going to crash even harder, right? So it's like chemical dumping for a minute. I think, oh, that's it. But then, so now I'm traversing these highs and lows. Now I'm on this roller coaster. Um, and then, of course, that hijacks my mood. And then often that'll hijack my speech, you know? And so, and so really, if I just turn to myself, it's like, oh, I'm exhausted. What's the best practice that I could do for me right now? How about Shavasana? How about not just Shavasana, but a weighted Shavasana? Let me put my sandbags in my weighted blanket and cover my eyes, right? And just be really still and breathe and reset my nervous system. That's really what I need. And if I did that for 10 minutes, that's more powerful than sometimes an hour long anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I needed. And then it's like, oh my gosh, now I'm feeling Cooper's in here, my third leg, as you know, and he's asking to go out. You just hold on, please. And so that's really what I needed. And so is that a valid practice? Absolutely. It's what I need. It's tending to myself, not making what's going on wrong, but embodying it, because it's absolutely what's happening. What's wrong is not tending to reality. So how to make those decisions and how to be able to understand all of the choices in a way that we can unpack to be able to know, now, how do I use these tools? Which tool do I apply today? And not just then mash on top of me, but elegantly meet me. And I'm going to have to let Cooper out.
Yep.
And he's probably going to bark in a minute once he realizes that I'm not going out, because he just wants me to go back to the house. I'm going to have to let him in.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask too, we've been talking about learning, asana sequence, what is called krama, developing the sequence in an
Yeah.
intelligent way. But I've had several people already ask me because they maybe come to Eastern Livity or because they're interested in these other aspects of yoga, like meditation or pranayama, breath work, or just mindfulness in general,
Right.
that I know that these are also incorporated in this training. But if you wanted to elaborate on.
Absolutely. So the first week is really the biomechanics of it. And it's not that we're going to be looking at, here learning these muscle groups. We're going to be looking at here are, because the body has front lines, back lines, lateral lines and spiral lines. And you really need to be accessing all of those lines when you're doing physical activity, right? Not driving my car or sitting here, but whirling my body through space, probably a good thing, especially if I'm weighting my spine with weight like a limb, which you see in a lot of different poses, right? So we've looked at those lines, and from a foundational 200-hour level, we've put it into 7 core actions that anybody can take. You can have an infused, spine, a rod in your spine. You can be absent a limb. You could be bedridden. You can be. It's, and you can take these 7 core actions that fully integrate the whole system, that turns on the muscles, aligns the bones, impacts the joints with working muscles so they stay empty, because they're transfers. They're not supposed to be weight bearing. And so we look at that, and then we get the language of how to speak those actions and how those actions then are carried into these shapes. That's when it's like, oh, in chair pose, if I activate my feet in this way, wow, I can feel my front line, my back line, the side, my lateral lines. Like, you can feel all of this. And now I'm lifting up out of my low back. I don't have sacrum pain, right? And my chair looks different than every other chair in the room, but this is my chair. And right. And everybody can find that. So week 1 is really about understanding that. It's so empowering, because then you realize I can investigate any single posture that anybody that I see on a magazine or a poster, and I can apply these 7 core actions, and it will tell me when I'm safe, because I'll feel it, when I'm integrated and aligned, and when I'm at my edge. And it'll be completely appropriate to what's going on with my body. It's so empowering. And so that's being unpacked and developed through the entire program. Okay. But that's why I say people start kind of applying it and teaching it in some way with their spouse or their partner or whatever, their kids, after that first week. The second week, we're continuing to develop everything that came before. We don't leave anything behind. Everything is now being grown and layered gradually as people are efficient and proficient with it. We don't leave anybody behind. And that's when we start layering in pranayama, looking at the nervous system. So that's, really getting into reclaiming breath capacity, and coming at it from a really elegant way, because just to start holding the breath, to start create, place, it's kind of like you got to breathe in for 10, hold for 5, and out for 10. That's like you having to memorize a sequence and teach it 100 times. That doesn't mean somebody's doing that and they're not bringing tension and activating a nervous system that's triggering fight and flight. And so it's absolutely counteractive to what the pranayama is for. So we really give that foundation for that, and ways in which to be able to make decisions, and grow that gradually. So that's a whole nother layer. And then through that, and of course, that second intensive is also now we're looking at the postures and applying the 7 core actions of the postures to we've taken all of what's the classical postures and said, what is relational here? What's the same? So week 2 is all closed hip, forward bend, Internal rotation is how we've packed that. So in an asymmetry. So any standing posture that includes a forward bend and or closed hips, we start learning there's an internal rotation to these seven, to the activations. And we start looking specifically at these shapes from what's relational to them. What do they all have in common? Because the only difference is the degree of complexity. So again, if you understand how to interface and use the 7 core actions and internal rotation in these simple ways, you have what you need to grow them into any complex shape, including creating your own, making them up. Somebody made these up. There's nothing magical about them. And so week 3 is then open hip, asymmetry, back bend, and external rotations. And we're not doing full wheels, we're applying as if how to start bending the spine backwards so that you are lifting up from it and protecting the joints, and these activations are doing that. And then we start adding meditation. And so everything we've done has already begun to lay the foundation for starting to sense deeply, turn back, get real acquainted with what's happening inside, the self-talk, just whatever, whatever's going on, to be able to now meet that, because it's there for a reason. And we don't need to make it wrong, we need to understand. And then like how to be able to direct people's attention. People say, I can't meditate because I can't pay attention. No, we're learning to pay attention. That is the aim. Every time you find yourself absent, and I'm back making my grocery list or having a conversation with my deceased mother, like, where did you put those ornaments, Mom? I can't find them. As I'm looking at the Christmas tree, I can't ask her. But you find yourself wondering again. Well, the moment I notice I'm wondering and I've returned to myself, that's it. You're developing attention. That's practicing. And then we also start getting into how to make adjustments. And that's trauma-informed adjustments. We don't touch our students. And we didn't do that before COVID. We didn't do that before everybody became trauma-informed sensitive. This is the way to go to empower people and to be respectful. And I have a lot of anecdotes that I share through my history that really help bring it home. So, we start getting into really interfacing with the students in that regard. And then the 4th intensive is really putting it all together. It's like you've got all of these major blocks. Now, how do you, and you've been building with them the whole time, but now how do we build with them so it interfaces? If you want to teach in the marketplace and you want to go into a studio and they say, I need somebody to be able to teach restorative yoga, you can say, yes, I can do that. I need somebody to teach a flow class. I got it. I need alignment based. I got it. I need hot class. I don't prefer that, but I'm menopausal. I don't need 90-degree rooms, but sure, I can do that. In other words, how do they, you need to teach a power class. Yes, I can do that. I need to teach a prenatal. Yes, I can do that. Everything that we've done before then now begins to coalesce, if you will, to what makes up the styles. Because all the styles are rooted in the techniques and principles that we're going to unpack for them. Mm-hmm. And then the business of yoga, like what do I do if I want to teach at a studio? What if I go into a hospital? What if I just want to do park, offerings in the park? How do I go here? What do I need to do legally? How do I handle my accountant? Do I need one? So we start adding that, including special populations. So how to work with athletes, how to work with the elderly, how to work with children, how to teach, chair yoga, the whole bit. Yes.
Well, that's
and
great, because this
probably
is
more,
absolutely.
But everything is being layered. And so even that might sound like a lot, there's such a before we get to each new block, there's such a foundation that's been formed. It's just, it has a really easy root
So you're
system.
ready to acquire
Yeah,
the next
absolutely.
stage. It's
Absolutely.
great. And I
Yeah.
love to hear that all that added at the end, because you may, if you're not just doing it for your own practice and
Yeah.
you want to go out into some kind of workplace, then that's really helpful. And then
Yeah.
one thing I've been saying, absolutely, if you're into yoga or you're a wellness enthusiast and you
Yeah.
want to teach at a studio, there's several studios even in Jonesboro here now.
Great.
That's great. This could be for you. But I really want people also to think outside the box of where you can bring
Yes.
this. And just like you just said, bringing it maybe to a hospital setting, or maybe you're a PT and OT.
Yeah.
I know Jonathan, even as a massage therapist, he'll often uh, give a treatment, be talking to the person and say, I really think you could, because he did go through, has done the advanced training through Circle Yoga Shala. He can now say, let me show you this pose or two that I really think would be beneficial so that you can get the
Right.
relief from this, right? So
Right.
it can be as small as that, or it could
Yeah.
be bigger, like working with one-on-one
Yeah.
clients in all these different settings. And even just, I think of school teachers of all ages of
Yes.
kids, to have 5 minutes of knowing how to breathe or to move their bodies,
Yes.
burn up some energy in a certain way.
Yeah.
This can really be imbued into so many different places in our community and be so beneficial. So I
Absolutely.
really want people to open their
Yeah.
minds where that kind of yoga can be put.
When we had the studio, I actually taught outside the studio quite a bit. I was very much in the marketplace or in the community, like trying to serve. And so I taught at a Montessori school regularly. They're 2, 3, and 4-year olds. I taught at a public school regularly. They're kindergartners, and they would bring all 3 classes. We're talking about 65-year-olds into one big auditorium, like a gymnasium thing. And all the teachers, and the first time I went, they were like laughing, like, oh, can't wait to see and I was like, oh, all at once. I thought I'd go from room to room, but I knew how to go. Like from what I'm talking about, I knew how to go. I knew how to respond to that audience. And 30 minutes later, you can't do 5-year-olds much longer than that. Um, but they went into Shavasana. It was dead silence. The whole room just went, and
Oh,
it was so palpable, like what you could feel. And I was still at that point now directing attention, pranayama and meditation in Shavasana. And everybody so landed that like, I still get like, I can still remember it because it even affected me. I was even like, I still sometimes go, this works. It's
right.
30 something years later. Yes. Oh my God, it works. But, the teachers had moved to tears. They couldn't believe it. And then I taught 8th grade students. I taught the basketball players at a public high school. Um, you know,
It's everything. I know. And I've gotten to do something similar, from kids yoga in various
yeah,
places to the ASU football players to like
yeah,
every kind of, gym and sports club in New York City and big
yes,
corporations, right, on their lunch
yeah,
break and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's everywhere. And then, even I have clients now, and I love this because my one-on-one practice keeps changing to just incorporate more and more. So people might come to me because they think that they need to work on their shoulder, or they've got, this physical
yeah,
thing. But like you said, they do some self-inquiry, and they were like, actually, maybe I do need to slow down. Maybe I want to do guided meditation. Maybe I want to make sure I get pranayama in, and I love
right,
that. Or maybe I want some journaling prompts. Maybe I want to do more inquiry, right?
right,
So I love that it's all incorporated. So this is
yes,
just a foundation for this to open up into so many different ways. So
yeah,
I want to leave this. I loved this chat, and I want to leave this today. Just saying that if you feel just that little question, you're interested, you're not quite sure, then reach out and let's
please,
connect and see if this might be that laying a foundation for you that's going to be really beneficial for your own self, your own development, and then for your various communities that you can bring this to. This is really important in our world today. It's just so
I,
much bigger than learning a yoga sequence. I know it's
it
a
is.
200-hour yoga training, and we've heard that before, and we've hearing it for years. And like you said, there's
Yes.
tens of thousands of studios. I know that. But the
Yes.
work of learning to go within and to really take care of our own bodies, this is what we
Yes.
can do in this world, is take care of ourselves.
Yes.
And then we move from that place to
Yeah.
help in any other ways and develop our community and to be of service to people. This is our great calling for this time, and this might be a way for you to do it. So I invite you to join us. And I thank you, Holly.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it. It's always a privilege, and I don't take it lightly. The opportunity to sit with people and to work with them through this process. It's a joy. And my goal, you know what my goal is because I've stated it, but I also need to say it is very important to me that everybody feels honored, they feel respected, right? Um, through the process. And
Mhm.
so,
Again, yeah, this is not something like we want to, you got to do the test, you got to get, it's about, we want you to succeed. You
yeah,
know,
I want
and
people to feel
not
nurtured.
just, yeah, not
Yeah.
just the material, but so that you really feel like you had a fulfilling process that you came to
Yeah.
at some point in your life where you may have not been in school in a long
And
time. But
empowered.
that's right. That's
Yes.
right. To
Yeah.
utilize the information in any way that's beneficial to yourself and to others.
Yeah.
So,
So
love
thank
it.
you. Give Jonathan my love and that precious child. And I can't wait to spend some time with you guys soon.